a foreign people from a foreign land that followed a foreign object that they had never seen before. KBC Dramatics presents the Starlight Adventure. Some said that I was more intelligent than most when I lived in my comfortable palace in Yazda, Persia. With myself and a couple of friends, well, we just loved watching the stars that seemed to mesmerize one by flickering above like 1,000 tiny candles on a birthday cake. We used to spend many nights plotting the dark sky. Now, one group of bright stars, they took the shape of a lion, or so I thought, while another looked just like a large crab, according to Afshin, who was my best friend. Besides the stars, we found the Hebrew religion fascinating and spent many hours debating the Torah, as well as many prophecies. We, the Persians, we believed in one main god, Ahura Mazda, as well as a few small deities. But a group of us found Yahweh, the Jewish god, fascinating and craved to know more. Then, one evening, everything changed. It was a clear night, and I was sitting alone, studying the sky. Suddenly, I saw a large and bright star in the southwest. It was incredibly close, and I was filled with wonder. After observing it for a short time, I knew that I just had to show my friends. After being shouted at, abused, and even pelted with boots, well, it was 2 a.m. and rather chilly, I managed to get my sleepy friends to climb out of bed and come to see the star. The sleep in their eyes disappeared like magic, and they were as enthralled as I was when they saw it. Afshin excitedly pointed to this bright object in the heavens.
Look, it's moving. Farouk, I'm telling you, it is moving. A minute ago, it was over Ibrahim's palace. But now, it is over the Imam's well.
I am sure that the star wants us to follow it, I said, almost unable to control my enthusiasm. Do you remember the other day when we were reading in the book of that prophet Isaiah about the coming of a Messiah? Maybe, just maybe, that time is now. It took us a day to organize our trip. Servants, camels, provisions, and of course presents. Now, despite objections from our families and friends, we just knew that this was the right thing to do. Now, we left at sunset the next evening. We worked out that to travel by night was the best, so as not only to be able to follow the star, but also able to rest during a hot day. When darkness transcended, we could immediately see that the star had moved significantly, heading us westward. We started out like little children going on an exciting adventure. As we began our journey, we never dreamed that our little adventure of following a star was going to last for nearly 2 years and be over 2,000 kilometers long. We dressed up warmly because the nights were extremely cold, and the trip just seemed to go on and on forever. We found ourselves thinking longingly about our warm and comfortable palaces. And the servants were grumbling all the time, especially after the camels ran away and they had to spend many days looking for them. But the star kept moving, leading us over mountains, valleys, and into desert. The villagers we passed were not very friendly. They were dirty and charged high prices. So we were forced to keep on moving and sleeping in our tents. Now, this went on day after day, week after week, and month after month. We would awake late afternoon and leave when the sun disappeared behind the hills, just as the star appeared in the southwest. When we eventually entered Israel, I just knew we were close. A few days later, we walked into Jerusalem. It was then the star seemed to have stopped to the east of the capital city. After hanging around for a few frustrating days, not quite knowing what to do, Afshan had an idea.
My father used to come to the city many times, selling silk and spice. He often spent many a day with King Herod, who had 2 or 3 high priests hanging around. I'm sure one of them will know where their Messiah is to be born. Why don't we pay him a visit?
We all agreed. So the next morning, dressed in our best clothes, we entered Herod's palace. Hey, this magnificent building was situated a few kilometers outside of Jerusalem. After waiting impatiently for at least 2 hours, apparently Herod only rose at midday. Isn't it good to be a king? He strode in, followed by a group of hangers on that treated him like a god. His broad smile was as false as his wig.
Greetings, gentlemen. I had a little chat with Rabbi Reuben about your problem. After going through the old books, he found the writings of some or other ancient prophet, fellow called Micah. Well, it speaks about a special king being born in the town of Bethlehem. Who has ever heard of anyone of importance being born in Bethlehem? But I tell you what, if you find this child king, come to my palace on your way home, and I will give you a banquet you will never forget. And you can also tell me where this king is, so that I, too, may go and worship him myself.
As we exited Herod's mansion, Afshin pointed to a spot east of the palace's entrance.
That is more or less where Bethlehem lies, and I'm sure that is the exact spot where the star stopped. I suggest we wait until this evening and see if this heavenly body has moved. And if not, then I believe we have found the place.
We eagerly awaited for the sun to go down. When I saw the star eventually appear, I was so excited I could not keep still. The star had not moved. Tomorrow morning, gentlemen, we are headed for Bethlehem. Get the presents ready. We arrived in the quaint little town just as the full moon was rising in the east. Leaving our servants outside Bethlehem to look after the camels, myself and the other 2 members of the Magi strode in. We immediately began looking for an inn so that we could, at long last, sleep on comfortable beds instead of the hard ground we had lain on for nearly 2 years. Babak pulled my sleeve as we reached an inn that we thought might be acceptable. Um, have you noticed something, guys?
No, we haven't.
I mean, look, the star. It's gone. I looked around the night sky, and he was right. The bright star we had religiously been following for 20 months had mysteriously disappeared. After we had booked in, I asked the innkeeper's wife if she knew or had heard of any special birth recently. She shook her head, but then added,
Now that you mention it, actually, there was an unusual birth about a year ago. A woman delivered a baby boy in my stable. Hey, don't look at me like that. They got here late, came from out of town, and besides, we had no room in my inn. What were we supposed to do? It was just before the second rooster when I woke my husband up, saying there was noise coming from the barn. When I looked out of the window, I saw 5 or 6 men. Some had staffs, so I assumed they were shepherds coming out of the stable. He rushed outside and managed to stop one of them. He told him they were coming to worship and praise, and I quote, the newly born King of Kings. Probably had too much wine, I thought, as I watched him and his cronies laugh, dance, and sing while they went down the road and out of town.
uh, Did the mother have anything to say about this? I asked in mild fascination. Huh. She thought for a few seconds before answering.
No, but a few days later, when I saw that the census they were forced to come to Bethlehem for would last a long time, I got my husband to organize a house for the new parents to rent. I think they're still living there today.
Early the next morning, after following her instructions, we found the house and, bowing low, we entered. The little boy was sitting on his mother's lap, and he had the most riveting eyes that I've ever seen. It was almost as if he was expecting us. He was no ordinary child, because even though the small house had mundane furniture, his aura was echoing magnificence, grace, and love. We, the dignitaries in our own country, felt like lowly servants in Caesar's palace. We presented our gifts of myrrh, frankincense, and gold, which were worth thousands of denarii, yet it felt like we were giving cents to a millionaire. Oh, it was a glorious encounter, a moment that gave me one of the greatest and most satisfying experiences that seemed to fill every cell in my body with exhilaration. Just before leaving, Babuk called me aside and said that we must go back by another route because an angel had appeared to him while he was sleeping and told him to do so because of Herod. He added that the last thing the king of Israel intended to do was to worship a king, any king. His motives were very much more sinister. The trip back was long and arduous, but we, the Magi, didn't seem to notice. As we entered our country, things were different. Even our families were distant. We just sensed an alien people clutching their alien gods. We just knew that our lives would never be the same again because we had personally met the one and only Savior